Hello everybody. Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 62, Plane Dodger, Additional Features. Well, we finished implementing all the core functionality of the Plane Dodger game. Plane Dodger is based on a simple concept, the old smartphone game Flappy Bird, and we've created a scrolling background, a controllable player plane. We've implemented periodically spawning enemies, as well as stars, which you can collect to earn points in the game. Now, that being said, there are a few finishing touches that should be added, and if you've been following along with this video series, you should feel ready and able to add those. So let's go ahead and talk our way through them. First, there's really no game ending condition, so we need to add a game over state. In particular, two things should signal the end of the game: if the player plane overlaps with an enemy, or if the player plane overlaps with the ground. In that case, you should remove the player plane and create some kind of a game over message that appears. This could either be text in a label, or you could have some sprite display an image containing a game over message. In addition, it's always a nice touch to add some special effects when two on-screen objects interact. And there's a few different sprite sheets in the folder attached to this project, uploaded on GitHub, which contain some sprite sheet animations. We have the explosion sprite sheet, which we also used in the previous game of asteroids, and maybe you could have an explosion appear in the location of the player when the game is over. In addition, it would also be really nice to have something happen whenever the player overlaps a star. Besides the star disappearing, there's also a sparkling animation. I think that's an 8x8 sprite sheet, which you can feel free to use and add into the game. In addition, we mentioned this in the previous videos, but once an enemy or a star passes beyond the left-hand side of the screen, there's really no reason to leave that in the associated group. So within the update function, you probably also want to check, if each enemy or each star is passed beyond the left-hand side of the screen. Maybe if the position X coordinate is less than, 30 or whatever the width of those objects are, or less than -30, I guess. Right, whenever that's true, you'll want to go ahead and remove those from the associated group. You might also want to consider modifying the scoring system. Right now, you only collect points whenever you overlap with a star. But maybe you also want to take into account the number of enemies which have dodged. So, you could, for example, implement a scoring system like this. Maybe add 5 points every time you collect a star, but also add 1 point every time you pass by an enemy completely. Probably the easiest place to add the +1 point would be in the same condition where you remove an enemy from the game after they've passed beyond the left-hand side of the screen. So at that point in time, you could remove the enemy from the enemy group and also add 1 to the score. And in that case, don't forget to update the score label. And finally, you're making this game, so you can feel free to tweak any of the numeric values as you wish. You can have objects spawn more frequently, if you think that'd be more interesting. You can also change the different physics values, the different speeds of the enemy and the star, the frequency with which they appear, or also for the player. And if you want the player's plane to feel heavier, you could increase the force of gravity, the acceleration downwards. Alternatively, you might also want to make the plane feel more floaty, in which case, whenever the player taps the spacebar, you could set the upward speed to be a little bit higher. And so feel free to experiment with and change those values until you have the game which makes you the most happy. Alright, and that's it for the Plane Dodger game. Once again, we've implemented a new game using the basic adaptable game engine library. Thanks for watching.